What's up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Joe and Josh Talk The Walking Dead. We're reviewing the latest episode.
Yeah, man, it was a really great episode. Really did a lot of development, and I think put a lot of things in place for the future.
Most definitely, this episode definitely brought out a lot of, it kind of connected some dots for us, too.
Yeah.
A lot of speculation, of course, over the past, episode or a couple episodes. We've all been asking the question, how how is Rick and the group going to possibly overcome the Saviors? Well, I think that we got a few answers, little hidden
Yeah.
answers in there tonight.
Yeah, one of the great things about any work of fiction like this is that the writers are constantly planting seeds and things that will develop, as the show goes on. And one theme that they've really been hammering home throughout the season is that the Saviors have the numbers,
Right.
and there are a lot of communities out there who are being victimized by the Saviors, but unfortunately, a lot of those people either they don't know how to fight or they've had their weapons confiscated. But now we're seeing Rick's group, the group that still wants to fight, because we've seen, other groups. We saw that the Kingdom was kind of not completely on board. They had their own strategy of trying to
Right.
get back at the Saviors. Tonight we saw at the Hilltop, they've been completely dominated and forced to kneel. But now we have members from Rick's group in power at all these communities, because we've already seen Morgan play a big role at the Kingdom, helping
Yep.
to train one of their soldiers. And now we're seeing Maggie and Sasha beginning to have a bigger role at Hilltop. So it looks like they're about to try to unite the forces. Their best option at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to come later on, but of course, a lot of things have to unfold first.
Yeah.
I know we've seen also Maggie. We got to meet up with Maggie, and her and the baby are all right.
Yep.
Also, during that episode, it's kind of powerful moments. When they were sitting at the table. They were having dinner, and she said, "We don't need anything to remember Glenn by,
Yeah.
because we have each other."
And that was something that they kind of had in their relationship before that. They had that philosophy where they got separated at the prison attack,
Right.
and Glenn had the picture.
Right,
When they
she
finally
burned
went back up, she burns it, and she's like, you'll never need it again. And we
Right.
saw that when Glenn was talking to Enid back when I think it was during the Wolves attack, where they actually brought out the balloons, which we saw again. She asked him, she's like, how do you go on? He starts naming off all these people. He's like, a man named Dale and a woman named Andrea. You carry these people with them.
Right.
And that's kind of what Maggie said to her, we have us, which
Right.
is, these people become a part of us, which they wrapped up that arc so amazingly in that episode where she was, telling him, don't call me pet names, don't call me by the wrong name, call me by my name. And we're thinking she's just going to say Maggie, but it's Maggie Reed. And it's like, now
Right.
Glenn's memory is officially living on, and I love it. Abraham, too. The
Right.
mourning aspect of this episode was really kind of somber because, it's just like, as we as fans are still getting over the deaths of those two characters, we see
Right.
that, of course, Maggie and Sasha, they're
Right.
still being affected as well.
Yeah, they're still being affected. They're still trying to overcome, and well, I think that part right there kind of, told us that this is the moving on point.
Right.
And like we said, we develop a relationship with these characters and stuff. So maybe we can eventually move on
Yeah,
too.
You gotta keep going on.
Gotta keep going on. Okay, so we talked about like what's going on. Of course, seeds being planted in each community.
Right.
Okay, so eventually, hopefully, we're hoping that they come together and they will, of course, battle the Saviors. That's what we're predicting.
Right.
Also, at the end of the episode, we seen Jesus and Carl.
Yeah.
Okay, so that aspect, I think, is following along with the comics.
Yeah. The interesting thing about how this season is shaping up is we're seeing a lot of small but kind of coordinated attacks on the Saviors from people who really they may not have the numbers right now, but they're using
Right.
kind of unorthodox tactics. Because we already see Carl and Jesus, and like you said, we're trying to sneak into the Savior's compound.
Right.
We see Rosita, who's back at Alexandria, who has a gun that she hid, and she's
Right.
telling Eugene to make her bullets and everything. So, like you said, I think it's going to really involve them trying to battle the Saviors in these unorthodox ways and trying to unite everybody as well. Because as we saw tonight, what the Saviors did with the car to get their
Right.
message across.
Right.
That was a pretty intense scene, and I love how they throw back to Maggie with the tractor.
With
that,
the tractor.
That was a great moment. And that whole fight scene too, with Jesus breaking out the Pettis kick
Yeah,
from UFC.
what? It's like, who knew that he was secretly a ninja?
Yeah, it's like we didn't know we were going to talk about MMA too
Right.
when we're reviewing The Walking Dead. But when Jesus is on that episode, you never know.
It's instant knockout. You know.
And his character too is one we got to see a lot more about tonight, because one of the things that we were talking about was, they brought into question Gregory's leadership tonight.
Yep.
And there's one point where he's talking to Jesus, and he's telling Jesus, okay, you can deal with all of this, and instead of going out there on the outside and I guess scouting and recruiting and everything, you can come be the leader, and kind of insinuating that Jesus doesn't stick around and Jesus doesn't really know the place. But then shortly thereafter, Gregory is referencing someone in the community, and Jesus corrects him on the name. So that lets us know that
Right.
Jesus is a big player in the community. He is someone who knows the people there.
Right.
So it's interesting that he is vouching for Maggie and Sasha now, because that's a great cohesive unit that can really, I guess, whip that entire colony into shape, kind of get some communications going on with Alexandria, do the same thing with, the Hilltop. It's just they've painted, they've started a lot of things off really
Absolutely.
well.
Absolutely. And so, just leads us to think, what's to come. I know we've seen a sneak preview of the next episode, and it's shaping out to be, some things are going to happen. I think we'll probably see maybe Carl and Jesus
Right.
infiltrate Negan's compound. We'll just have to wait and see what's going on there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and another thing we were talking about is now in this episode too, we saw Rick, who was just very passively, like we said, since the last episode, where he's like, I'm accepting this. He was just talking in this episode. He's like, well, I'm going to go out and see what I can find for them. And Gregory too, who had that interaction with Simon, which was great.
It was
You have
fantastic.
Trevor from GTA 5, man, and The Walking Dead, and can't get any better than that. But we really get a glimpse into Gregory's leadership here, and
Right.
we see that he actually tried to give up Maggie and Sasha.
Absolutely.
At first, we thought like, oh, he's just he's maybe gonna just give them the alcohol to like try to pacify them. And we were like, no, he thought that they were in that closet. Had it not been for Jesus thinking
Right.
ahead,
Right. Thinking ahead, then they would pretty much be giving up.
yeah,
and
and that would have been really bad, because like we talked about, if they would have seen Maggie, they would have been like, wait, that means she's not in that grave in Alexandria. And that would
And-
mean that if they have any guns buried in that grave, like we've been speculating, that
Then-
they would be in serious trouble.
Serious trouble. Somebody's going to be had.
Yeah.
Then, for sure. So this is what happened on this episode, and which was called the
Go Getters.
Go Getters. And so this is pretty much. I don't know. Do you have anything to add, man?
I just really like the direction. I think that this episode, like we said, put a lot of things in place that really highlighted Carl kind of growing up and becoming this main character, like we had talked
Right.
about in I think last week's episode. And we're also getting more of a glimpse into the psyche of the Saviors, because we kind of saw Simon do the same thing to Gregory that Negan did to Rick, which is basically not only take all your supplies, but not using that one line that Negan used, but basically completely dominating someone and then making them thank you or making them kneel.
Exactly, for that. And it's just how they are able to control these people by doing that. I mean, they just break them down and make them realize, hey, you either do what we say or you're going to die.
Exactly. So a lot of great things in this episode. A lot of seeds planted for the future, man. And I can't wait till next week, because we'll see the Saviors at their compound. We saw Negan giving his little pep talk in the preview.
Right, and also we seen Daryl.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see what's going on there. But I know that I announced, on the, when we announced it, our promo on Facebook, that we'd be talking about, we're getting some things together.
Right.
So I'll let you go ahead and take the reins on this. What we have planned, that way we can let everybody know what me and you plan on doing with this show.
All right, guys. So we really like doing this, talking about everything from TV shows to sports. We've been talking about maybe doing some videos on current events. Just talking, and of course taking it to the live setting soon, so you guys can comment and we can interact with you, because we really do appreciate you checking out the show. And once we start getting up and rolling here really soon, we're going to make a dedicated Facebook page
Absolutely.
for the show, as well as a YouTube channel.
Yes.
So you'll be able to subscribe to us. We're going to have updates, and sometimes we're going to do impromptu videos, just little specials and things for you guys. So we will definitely have it so you guys can subscribe to us, you guys can follow us, and that way when we do start putting stuff out, regularly, you guys won't miss anything, because we really do appreciate it, and we're
Absolutely.
super excited to move forward, man.
Yep, super excited. We got a lot of things coming, and again, we want to thank you for watching this episode of Joe and Josh Talk. The Walking Dead. We will see you next week for another edition of Joe and Josh Talk The Walking Dead.
See you later, everybody.